Hello, beautifuls. This is a great time to talk with you about coaching. Just the modality itself can feel like it's shrouded in mystery, right? It's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? You have to have so much courage to even come forward with admitting these truths to yourself, but I would just like to make it easier for you. We're about to come into the full moon in Leo. Think of like the Lion King on Pride Rock. Like you need to just be able to stand and say like, look at all that I've created. You know, like look at all that I've done for myself. I'm the shit. I am awesome. And I'm just gonna sit in that knowing of how capable, how resourceful, how skilled, how gifted I am. Honoring and witnessing and acknowledging how much courage it took you to get where you are. How much faith and will and determination it took you. So I just wanna reassure you, what the heck is gonna happen when you schedule this call? I'm going to ask you very specific questions and I'm going to give you the outline of exactly what you can expect when you come to meet with me. If nothing else, even if you stop watching this right now, I would like you to know that you are incredibly courageous, right? You are the lion. You are owning everything that you have achieved and accomplished in your life thus far. You are incredible, wrapped in like love, support, guidance constantly, and you can be your authentic self. You can speak your authentic voice. Your subtle energy is real. It does speak to you. This is your knowing. This is your intuition. I'm really getting ahead of myself here. Let me give you the rundown of what the heck a coaching session is like. Here's the coaching outline. I love you. Thanks for watching. Mwah.
Hello, beautifuls, and welcome. Thank you for being here and for being fully present for yourself. All of the parts of you are always welcome here. I thought I would go through just a little bit of a synopsis of what a coaching call is like for you, just so you can try it on, as opposed to other modalities, just to kind of break that, I don't know, kind of confusion or just not knowing what the coaching process is like, specifically what my intuition holistic coaching process is like. So I always start with a reminder that all of the calls that we are on are recorded. They auto record and they are for you to have after. This is what a lot of my clients find beneficial, so that when they're in the call, they can spend that time not furiously taking notes on things that they have brought into their awareness or insights or aha moments, but they can kind of relax a little bit and know that they'll have it to watch afterwards in case they're like, what was that thing? What did I forget? Right? The calls are also, if you choose to record, I may send one back to you at a later date just to say, hey, is it okay if I use these words that you used to, maybe if you've agreed to write a testimonial, say for me, perhaps, but it's always your choice. So at the beginning of the call, I would just say, this call is being recorded. It auto records. Do you want to continue recording or would you like to stop recording today? That's how we begin. And then at any point in the call, if you do, for example, wish to continue recording, at any point in the call, you can say, please stop the recording now. I don't feel comfortable. That's always your right. And so, do you consent? Do you consent to recording or would you like me to stop it? So I'm an ICF coach, International Coaching Federation, and I follow the ICF ethics of practice. So the process of coaching is client-led from this modality and accreditation, meaning you always have the power. As the client, we go where you choose to go, what you say you want, and I will always ask for your consent in our relationship if something comes through for me, or if I witness something that you might want to know, that I'll just point out that is happening, that I'm observing. Either something that you're saying or not saying, something that I'm witnessing in your body language, your facial expression that might be beneficial for you to have reflected back at you. But I'll always ask your consent. Would you be open to hearing what I'm witnessing coming through for you? You can always say yes or no. So before we begin, I want you to know that you are loved, and I love you purely because you exist, right? You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and I love you for existing, regardless of this coaching relationship and regardless of any other relationship that you and I might have. This is specifically the coaching one. And regardless of any of it, you are worthy of love. You come from love. You will return to love, and you will keep returning to love over and over again to develop this deeper, intrinsic, intuitive sense of self-love. It's my deepest desire that you know that to be true for yourself, that each day you grow deeper in this knowing, this trust in your phenomenal being. So welcome to your first coaching call. I'm really excited that you're open to learning more about this modality and trying it as a possible solution for yourself. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what coaching is, and then if you decide to have a call with me, we will use the rest of the call for an actual trial coaching session. So how does that sound to you? Would you like to consent to that? I'm going to assume you said yes. So if you do say yes, here's an outline of how the session works. In coaching, we come to what is called an agreement. So this is the heart of what you decide you want to work for the next 60 minutes. If we go and work for, say, a month, 3 months, 6 months, or a whole year, you also make an agreement in your first session about what we're going to cover over that entire period. This is always your choice to change within each session. And you can change not only the overarching agreement of the sacred space that we contain, that's what we typically call it, a container. So it's a contained space within the time frame that we set for it. And also we create sacred space between us. So essentially the agreement is your goal. It can be multi-layered. It can be many things, or it can be just one thing. So through a series of insightful questions, this is what I will do, is ask you questions. I will evoke your awareness around the topic that you bring forward. What this does is it helps you to reveal to yourself the most important essence of what you are seeking. What's at the very root of what you are going for, what you want. We define it. We get really specific, and I ask you a lot of questions around that agreement. And then once it's very clear for you, doesn't have to be clear for me, it needs to be clear for you. Then we agree to work towards that goal, that agreement. We will also then assess, what does the outcome look like? What does it feel like? What does it seem like? We might envision it. How are we going to know that we got you exactly what you came to this meeting for? How are we going to know that we got to the end of this sacred container and you got it? You got what you needed, right? This is what we call a measure in coaching. How are we going to measure it? And this can be anything. It doesn't have to be, I will have this specific thing done. It could be that I will feel this way, that I will know myself, that I will just be happier, right? It doesn't have to be tangible, concrete things, because we want things in the kind of ethereal, inexplicable space for ourselves. And that's the whole purpose of knowing intuition. But it's making that switch between just what I'm doing, right? The self actualization part. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing, but you will eventually realize that it matters who I am being. and that it might feel a certain way. I might not know how it looks, but I'll know that feeling because I'm going to begin to observe myself and the sensations that come up in my physical body and my subtle energy over the course of this period so that I get more familiar and comfortable and I know what my yes is. Yeah. So the topics for both the agreement and the measure can be based on the 4 pillars of holistic health. And this is so that we can utilize all of yourself, all parts of you to access your intuition. So the 4 parts are mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. So we acknowledge that you are not just a being in a body. You are not just your brain. You are not just your heart and your subtle energy. You are not just your emotions. You are not just your connection to spirit, right? Otherwise, you'd be maybe levitating or floating between dimensions, and that is possible. And you may do that, from time to time. You may release your physical body from this dimension and float into the beyond. We know this, right? This is possible because you have felt it before. So with those 4 pillars, we start to recognize that I can work around these topics with the focus of one of these or all of them. This is so that we don't have to always default to just what we've always done, what we always have thought, how we always have acted. But instead, we start to begin to shift our traditional thought patterning that may be limiting, right? That may be in scarcity. And we're starting to rewire our brain. We're trying to refire these neurons so that we focus on what matters most to you instead of what held you back, what blocked you. And we will do work around identifying and clearing blocks as well. So what we're going to use are the attributes of ourselves that aren't necessarily always physically present and aren't always in our consciousness, right? We're going to kind of traverse into the subconscious mind, into the parts that we're not just like naturally default aware of. But these are always within us and they're always in our subconscious. So they are accessible. We remind you that your emotions and how you communicate with the divine and how you communicate with the universe and subtle energy in your body is always guiding you. It's always a signal to you. But we often disregard these things. We shrug it off. Oh, that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, I'm not going to worry about that. Just forget about it. That's not real, right? This is the process of identifying what is real, what is true, even if it's not tangible, if you can't hold it in your hand or even describe it with your words that come from your brain, because these are the things that are not, they're sometimes inexplicable, and it's hard with our human existence to describe these things. So just know that even if you find it hard to find the words, I get you. I already get you, right? I've been here, so I know. So you won't have to be explaining yourself so much. You won't have to, I mean, my clients often say, like, does that make sense? Yes, absolutely makes perfect sense. Go ahead, right? Continue. To the point where they don't need to check in with me anymore. They slowly become more comfortable just saying what comes up, and they don't have to check in. Does that make any sense? Because it does. Of course it makes sense. I know already, right? So we use these coaching methods, this modality, to enhance your intuition and to practice developing that trust in where the intuition is leading you. You are always being guided towards your next best step. So this is the heart of coaching. That's it. Agreement, measure, asking a bunch of questions, accessing your intuition. And then there's some additional wonderful things that come out of the process that you get to choose how you do these things. So one, there's 5 of them, or there's 4 of them. And then I add a little 5th one. So one, you get to choose how you want to begin the session, what you want to clear, how you want to center yourself, how you might want to ground yourself to prepare to be in the here and now. And I have a lot of resources for this. So if you ask me, I can share with you. Do you consent to me guiding you through meditation? What specifically would you like to have in this brief meditation? How long do you want it to last, etc.? What do you want it to focus on? For example, you may have tools already that you use that work for you. So we're just going to practice coming in, creating a sacred space, and preparing to then go into the deeper conversation. You always have the choice how you close the session at the end so that it feels complete and it feels good and right for us to leave, similar to what you would feel in a Savasana, corpse pose after your yoga practice, right? You need to integrate. You need to let everything sink in. So what I do is I'll give you reminders towards the end of the session. You know, we're coming up on 10 minutes, we're coming up on 5 minutes. Just keep in mind that we want to be able to give ourselves at least a minute at the end, or however much you say you would like, to bring it all back together and to reflect, right? And however you want to close is fine. So you always have that choice as well. We can, I've had some clients close with a mantra that they want to repeat, a brief meditation, or just what's the most impactful thing that came from this session today. Number 3, if you want to receive the messages that I channel while we're coaching in the form of questions to you, asking you how these feel, you can let me know in our very first session if you would like me to let you know if something comes through, and I will always ask you for your consent. Something's coming through for me. Would you like me to share it with you? It's not guaranteed that something will come through always, but more than likely, something always comes up. So I will always ask you. If you consent to me asking you, then I will always say, something's coming through for me. Would you like to hear what I'm seeing, hearing, witnessing, sensing? And if you say yes, then I'll share. And then after I share, I will ask, how does that resonate with you? What does that bring forward? What does that mean to you? Because it's not about me. It's not about me telling you what's here, because that might not resonate. You might think something completely different than what I'm sharing, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just here to hold space for what you want again, and maybe you want this. And the 4th thing, we integrate what you learn through the processing of your agreement and your measure. So I'm going to ask you questions throughout the session to help you reach that agreement and facilitate you taking further actions on it, right? To build the awareness and insights into your life in practical or perhaps ethereal ways, just about awareness. So you're going to take small steps each week, and I'm going to ask you, how are you going to integrate that? What are you going to do? What are you going to take action on, right? This is using our masculine energy and also loving yourself through that, using your feminine energy. So I'm always going to acknowledge you for the resources and skills that you already have, the strengths that you can use to support yourself. And I'm going to ask you questions so that you are growing and are becoming more and more aware of yourself and your own process and what you need, so that you can integrate that into life outside of these calls, right? Because having awareness is great, and having insights is beautiful, and it's enjoyable. And then if we don't do anything, if we don't take any steps to integrate that, then nothing happens, nothing changes, nothing shifts. And we want you to shift because you want to shift, right? Something needs to shift to get to where you want to go, because something was blocking you from getting there in the first place, right? And finally, throughout the whole entire call, I'm going to acknowledge you, witness your brilliance, ask you how you might do these things for you by drawing upon your strengths, your resources, your skills, your uniqueness, Times in your life where you used your intuition and where it worked. Times in your life when you found glimmers of trust and deep love, understanding, peace, joy, and how you got yourself there. Right? This is the part of coaching that's a bit different from therapy, for example, because in therapy, you might bring up a lot of that past pain, but in coaching, we're only looking in the past for strength, resources. How did you do it? How did you get it? Because you got here already. How? What did you do? Because you're amazing, you're brilliant, and you already have all the tools that you need, right? It's a very forward looking. We look back to see strength and bring it forward so that we can then utilize it into the future. So I'm also going to consistently return you back to what you said you agreed on. I'm always going to remind you if I hear you going off on a tangent or, straying deep into story, deep into maybe limiting beliefs and cycles and stories of past pain, because we all have them. And a lot of times it needs to come out, right? And I'll just gently remind you, hey, I'm hearing this, like a lot of this story, and it's okay. But I just wanted to remind you that you agreed upon working towards this. So how could we shift this to maybe take it back into your agreement? Or do you want to stay in that, in that story? There's no judgment if you do. Then we just need to do a bit of recontracting, it's called. We need to change the agreement a little bit. Because if we set out and said, okay, I'm going to work towards this thing, and we start telling the old story, then we're no longer working towards that thing. And that's okay. We just need to then decide, okay, I want to use the rest of this time to tell this story because it needs to come out of me right now. And that's perfectly fine. Then that's what we use the rest of that time for. You always have that choice, right? So how does this sound? Do you have any questions for me? If you do, please send me a message, or book a session is the best way. Book a trial session. It's for a greatly reduced price. They're $30 for your first session, and you can experience what the coaching process is like. So that's just the description of it. And then you can actually bring something forward that you want to work through, and we'll go through it together. And you can see how that feels. And then if you want to continue, great. And if you don't, also great. Right? So thank you so much for watching. I love you. Please let me know what you gained from this, if anything. And how did you feel in your heart space? Right? And what did you intuit? Maybe just being in this energetic space, you may have received some messages here. So please let me know what you might have received. Is this a good time to end this conversation? Since you can't respond to me because I'm talking to no one essentially right now, how about we just sit, take a moment, place our hands on our hearts. This is not coaching, by the way, this is teaching, right? And just see what you feel was the most beneficial for you in this time, just right now. You got this far, you watched the video. What did you gain? What did you gain? What did you enjoy? And what do you want? What do you know, perhaps more clearly, that you want? And most importantly, what are you going to do? What's the 1% shift into that future reality that you're going to take? Until I see you again. Thanks so much for watching. I'll put the links in the description below. I love you, but it's more important that you love you. Keep following your intuition, beauties. It never lies. Mwah.
What coaching really is, because coming to coaching is already confronting enough. It's already confusing enough. The topics that you're going to bring up that are so entrenched in your soul, it is kind of like just holding a mirror up to you and saying, see, this is what is here. What do you want to do with it? That which has been holding you back, blocking you from the things that you really want forever. And you're just done, right? You know that so much more complete and infinite abundance exists for you in the world. And you're just like, let's do it already. Let me pull the trigger. Let me get this thing because this is what's going to move the needle. What's going on here? Let me pay closer attention.